In this video, we'll be taking a look at the different types of lights within Maya. As an overview to get accustomed to the options that you have, we'll be using the still life example found in the lighting project folder. Make sure to set your project to the lighting folder before you begin. In the scenes folder, you'll find still life VO1. Let's go ahead and open that, and that will show you this scene. We have our perspective view and we have a camera view. We won't move around in the camera view just to keep that composition active. I'm going to go ahead and turn off wireframe so we can take a nice look. Now again, if you just go ahead and render the existing camera with no lights in your scene, you will have Maya's default light. And this fills in much the same as what you see here. Now let's go and press 7 for lighting view, and you'll see there are no lights. 7 will not show you what the default lighting is. However, being in 5 mode in shaded view certainly will. The different types of lights available to you are all found under the Create menu under the Lights submenu. Let's tear off that menu so we have our list. Start with the ambient light. When you create an ambient light, you get an icon that looks like that. We're going to just kind of move it out of the way a little bit. An ambient light's position is not terribly important because an ambient light casts an even light throughout your scene. The only importance on its position is its proximity to objects, more or less. But again, it's a very, very even light and leads to a very milky and washed out appearance. Ambient lights are pretty good just to throw an overall light level onto a scene, but typically it's lower intensity and is complemented by at least a few other actual lights, such as spotlights or directional lights. Our next light to take a look at is the directional light. Let's go ahead and delete the ambient light, and let's go to 7, and let's open the directional light. Let's move it on up. As you can see, the placement of directional light does not really affect the lighting on the object. A directional light is all about its orientation. So when we rotate it around, we see light coming from that direction in parallel, even lines. This type of light is good for many uses, including simulating a sunlight. Let's go ahead and set this up and take a look in our render view on the camera. And you'll see you'll get a pretty nice directional feel. This is a pretty good light for a fill light, but can also be used as a key light and even a rim light quite easily. Now let's get rid of that light and take a look at our point light. We'll press 7 for lighting feedback, and you get an icon that looks a little bit similar to the ambient light. But as you can see, a point light is very dependent on its placement in relation to the object. It's almost like having a light bulb. Go ahead and render this out and take a look at it. The difference between a point light and a directional light is pretty evident. You get much more mood with a point light, and you get a much better sense of a singular source to a point light than you do with a directional light. Now let's go ahead and delete this light, and let's create a spotlight. The spotlight is a conical shape that is basically directional as well as sourced, meaning it's the best of both worlds between a directional light and a point light. Here's its source. It points this way, and it's in this width. Take a look at its render. Let's save this one in the buffer and go ahead and look at that. Again, the differences are pretty apparent between the point light and the spotlight. You get a very noticeable harsh edge where the spotlight falls off. You can see its preview over here. You do get a sense of direction. Spotlights are very, very useful for all three types of three-point lighting. The key, the fill, and the rim, but very popular for the key and the rim. Now let's get rid of our spotlight and let's turn on our area light. An area light is a large swatch of light that points in the direction of this little line. So if we turn it around, it's almost like an office overhead light, one of those fluorescent panels. Its position is very important. Its orientation is also important. Furthermore, its proximity is also important. So you can see, if we render this out, you'll get to see the differences between. Now that is a very bright light. So let's go ahead and move that light all the way up. We'll save that to the buffer, render this out, and you'll see a greatly diminished amount of light. So its distance from the objects is also very important. That's due to light decay. Let's go ahead and render this at a medium distance. We'll get rid of this blown out one by clicking this icon. You can see the differences between these lights. Finally, let's take a look at the volume light. The volume light is very much like the area light in that its proximity is important for its intensity in the render. It's also very much like the point light in that it has a singular source, but where the volume light really excels is that it allows you to kind of see where that light is going to fall within that volume. Now here's the funny bit. You can see what's going on in the viewport. However, when you go to render, if you have Windows 64-bit and you're using Autodesk Maya 2012 or 2013, there's a known bug where it won't render using Maya software. For right now, let's go ahead and change to Mental Ray. We won't touch any other settings. Let's go ahead and render this now. You'll see that you've got a beautiful and very soft, delicate light that falls off into black, basically where the edge of our sphere is. The light is contained within that volume and is very easy to tell where your lights are going to be and where they're going to fall off. We can change the parameters of lights, which we'll taking a look at in another lesson. But by and large, in this video, we took a look at the different types of lights that Maya has and the relative renders that you get from each light.